middle, chapter 6. I'm lying on the bed, just taking this all in as dusk sets in outside. My eyes are looking at the ceiling and I can just make out some glow in the dark stickers in the shape of constellations. Cool. I love this room. It even smells good. Actually, the scent is coming from the open window. What is that smell? It's a mixture of laundry soap, lavender, and oranges. I decide to try out the bed. After a few minutes, I'm drifting off in the place just between lu- lucidity and slumber. Lucidity and slumber. When I hear something, psst, my eyes shoot open faster than you can say America's Most Wanted. Who's there? I whisper. Hey, a faceless voice hisses from the window. There it is again. Jumping up, I roll onto the carpet and under the bed. Isn't this ironic? Because under the bed is always the first place a serial killer looks. Always. The open window produces a loud scratch, then a plink sound. Someone or something is coming in. Great. I won't see my family again, either of them, and they'll find me here, buried in a pink trailer. Which reminds me, I feel around for the huge 8-track music tapes I saw earlier. Grabbing one, I lob it over my head as I stick my hand out. It seems to do the trick because the noise has stopped. But what just happened here? Doesn't anyone want to check on me? After what seems like hours, I slip out from under the bed to peer towards the sound of the near crime. I was right. Someone or something tried to slit the window and open it. I tiptoe over to get a closer look. By the way, I'm sort of hooked on the show CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, and I thought I should probably look for clues. Back to the caper at hand. After checking the window scene at my grandparents' trailer, pink, I see the thing that was thrown into my mom's room when I heard the noise. When I bend down to take a closer look, I realize it's a glass jar. Now, who would throw a glass jar in a window? I pick it up, hold it to the light. What's in there? It's dirt. Someone pushed open my window, bent back the screen, and then threw a jar of dirt in my room? What does this mean? Is it a secret code for something on the reservation? Like, go home, weirdo, or you're a dirtbag? There's no way I'm staying in this room any longer by myself, so I quickly walk back out to the living room. I can still see about the 10 relatives, at least I'm assuming they're relatives, sitting at various places. They all stop and look at me, then glance down at the jar I'm holding. My father looks up from his recliner and says, Kikaway? What? What's that you got? Someone pushed it in my window. Oh, is that right? He asks, looking up from his newspaper. They want me to leave, I whisper. Who wants to heave? Grandpa yells. What? No, somebody doesn't want me here. It's some type of message, or maybe even a threat. They put dirt in the jar. Now, why would anyone put a shirt in your car? He asks. Right now, the relatives look as if they're watching a tennis match, first looking at me, then turning when my grandfather speaks. Apparently, Grandpa is hard of hearing. I say up, he hears cup. You say tree, he hears knee. It's making for some interesting conversations. Xavier, my grandma shouts at Grandpa, you turn on your hearing aid right now so Apple can talk to you. Go ahead, my girl. Your Moosham forgets to turn up his aid, so I have to remind him that he's no spring chicken anymore and his hearing isn't too good, but he's such a dear. Oh no, Marie, Grandpa says. I don't want a beer. That woman says the oddest things at times. The funny thing is, he looks sideways at me with an upturned corners of his mouth. Then he just sits and rocks in his chair, letting the supple grin settle down again. When no one is looking, he winks at me, and then does the same weird puckering with his lips in Grandma's direction. I'm not I'm not sure exactly, but I wonder if my grandfather is playing my grandma, making her and everyone else for that matter think he can't hear, or at least can't hear better than he lets on. At least I think that's what he meant. I'm sure hope that lip thing isn't contagious, or worse, hereditary. Drat. At least it gets my mind off the jar of dirt. I'm waiting for everyone in the trailer to go home, but they seem to have other ideas. At my house back with Dad, Judy, and Bear, it's an unwritten rule that guests stay for 2 hours to 4 hours, then politely excuse themselves to go do some made-up errand. Not here in Morinville, North Dakota. The relatives are here, and more seem to keep showing up. As I listen to the conversations floating around me, I pick up what must be an accent of theirs up here in the reservation. It's the way some of the Indians here speak, but not all. I notice that the th sound in front of the words aren't pronounced, but instead are said with a D or sometimes a T. And when they talk, it reminds me of riding a roller coaster. They change their pitch and slowly let their words slide up and down as the sentence continues. It makes me think that their dialect matches the gentle sloping of the land here. Up and down, up and down. So much more interesting than the flat Minnesota accent. Yeah, sure, you betcha. Yeah, sure, you betcha. All of the food in the kitchen keeps multiplying. If there were 7 baskets overflowing with fish, I'd almost think it was a downright miracle. I guess it's some sort of party. Everyone knows each other, and my grandma is trying to introduce me. But after meeting the 40th or 41st person, my mind just shuts down and I nod to everyone. Who knew you could cram so many Native Americans into a tiny space? Oh, wait, I guess that's what the government did with Indian reservations to begin with. Uncle Sam should be called Uncle Cram. I wish for once in my life I had the ability to flit around and meet and greet people I didn't know. Sad, isn't it? And that I wish I could talk to my own relatives. But there's just something inside me that makes it so hard, so painfully difficult to approach people I don't know and actually talk to them. My whole life, I've been always felt like a character in Star Wars. Surrounding me wherever I go is a force field. It's an invisible bubble that coats me, and when I walk around, it keeps people from getting close to me. I can be in a crowded room, like tonight, but there's this force field. When I walk to the left, people shuffle away and conversations stop. When I veer to the right, folks nod politely and make room for the unseen energy they feel as I pass. It's not only a physical separation, but it's also an emotional one. Have you ever felt that way? That even in a sea of people, whether large or small, no one can really see you? You'd think it would be cool to have a superpower to be invisible, but I'd do anything just to be noticed. I wish the Force were with me. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. My grandmother looks at me across the kitchen with her head tilted to the side and puts a finger on her chin. It looks like she's trying to solve the New York Times Sunday edition crossword puzzle. Now, my girl, here is your second cousin on your mother's side, Annette. And here is your great uncle Morris. He's grandpa's uncle on his mother's side. That would be your great grandma Elizabeth, she says, nodding to this person, and that while putting me to her with a great bear of a hug. This continues for what seems like forever. The food is set out, and it's starting to sink in that everyone is here for me. This is a welcome home party for yours truly. I move out the door and back onto the deck where I see the mountain man, or Junior as everyone calls him. He looks in my direction and nods slightly. It's just enough of a recognition that my fear of him starts to melt. I don't quite know what to say, but seeing everyone here is starting to overwhelm me. I'm afraid that someone will ask me about my mother, and I'm afraid that no one will say anything about her either. I must have a look in my eye that resembles a caged animal, because my grandmother suggests that I go take a walk outside for a few minutes to get some air. What do I do when I'm getting stressed out, besides the foreign exchange student act? I usually head for a secluded spot like a closet, but since it's tight quarters inside and out on the deck, I find a solitary place in the backyard on the swing. I don't care how old you are, at any age a swing is a beautiful thing. When you pump your legs and start moving, it's almost as if the wind is darting in and around you, caressing your cares away. I continue swinging for about 10 minutes, just taking in the scene. Back at the trailer, I think it's actually a magenta color, and how it is overflowing with people. These people are linked to me, to my blood, through my mother. I should get up there and visit with them, but I just don't know how to yet. Do you want me to push ya? I spin around to the voice. What? Who's there? I just know a lot about swingin', the voice says. The high-pitched voice seems to be coming from a wooded area in the backyard next to the woodpile. Okay, here's the deal, I spew to the mystery voice. I was just dropped off to a family I don't even know, and I'm pretty sure there's someone stalking me and throwing things in my window to get me to go home. So if you want to say something to me, just show yourself. Out from behind a blue spruce walks a little sprite of a girl. She looks to be around 5 years old, with an avalanche of chestnut curls spilling down her back. The little girl just stands there with a tilted head smiling. Well, come on, Den, she says, and she turns around. I watch her make her way up the steps and into the trailer. The people sitting on the deck pat her head as she walks by. Everyone seems to know her. What in the world kind of place is this? After letting the swing come to a stop, I search for a glimpse of the slight girl. I can't see her anymore, and I've calmed down a bit, so I decided I need to get to the bottom of this. After all, I was almost tonight's main attraction on the latest episode of America's Most Wanted. I had to quit watching that show by myself last year because every time the wind would howl outside the window of our family room, I would have a near heart attack. So it's the only time I ask Bear to watch TV with me. If there's someone outside looking in deciding who to kill, I figure my odds are better if there's another person in the room with me. Who better to offer as a sacrifice than your own little brother? I make my way up the deck and pardon me and excuse me my way through the crowd of relatives. By the time I make it inside, that little girl has parked herself between Junior and my grandmother at the kitchen table. I make my way up the deck and pardon me and excuse me my way through the crowd of relatives. By the time I make it inside, that little girl has parked herself between Junior and my grandmother at the kitchen table. She's eating what looks to be a triangle-shaped donut with all the crumbs dotting her chin. Now that I'm inside, I can better see this little lass. I notice her curls out by the swing when she talked to me, and now I can see the rest of her. Her skin has a golden hue that sets off her tan. I can honestly say that those are the prettiest eyes I've ever seen. They look like little caramels under thick eyelashes. I must have been staring at her because she turns and, with a full mouth of food, says, "Bang!" "Excuse me," I utter, amazed. "Bang! Bullets!" Little Caramel Eyes says. Little bits of food are spewing out as she tries to talk. It's sort of gross and a tad violent. Kids are pretty disgusting when they eat. Remind me never to apply for a job as a cafeteria lunch lady. Well, what kind of thing is that to say? I answer, a bit too forceful. "Bang, bang, bullets!" yells Caramel Eyes. I glance between Junior and my grandma, looking for someone to help here. Obviously, this child is prone to violent outbursts, but they don't discipline her or reprimand her or step in to help at all. See, that's the problem with kids today. No direction. As I take a breath to start my lecture on how to be polite and not verbally shoot the guests of honor, me, she holds out a small chubby hand with one of those donuts. She smiles with a mouthful of bread and what looks like hamburger and whispers, "Bang?" Gramley gently wipes the little girl's mouth and takes the donut from her outstretched hand and turns to me. "Apple, I see you've met little Inns." "Oh," I answer, not formally. "Now, Inns, run along and tell Grandpa that he needs to come and carve the ham," Grandma says as she shoos the child away. After Inns leaves the kitchen, I ask, Grandma, is little Inns, a special needs child? Because, well, she seems to have a violent streak. "What are you talking about, Apple?" she asks. Junior almost spits out his food as he says through laughter, "Apple, you do know that Inns is offering you a bong? That's Indian fry bread in the Turtle Mountain Mischief language." He holds up one of the triangle donuts and pops one into his mouth. "As you can see," Junior pats with his Buddha-sized belly, "that's what helps keep me in shape." A rail-thin woman with spiked hair sitting down next to him lets out a great howl. "Oh, well, okay, that explains the bang part, but she was yelling for bullets. Every city girl knows that that's a threat," I shriek. "My girl," Grandma whispers in my ear, "Enz was offering you a Turtle Mountain food staple, la boulette, in the Mischief language, or bullets." She nods to Junior as he pops a meatball in his mouth. "Oh, so bullets are meatballs," I say. I get it now. But why didn't she just call them what they are? At the same time, both Junior and my grandma chuckle and say, "She did."